Hey everyone, welcome back to the Fintegrated podcast where we talk about numbers aren't just numbers, they're kind of signals for what is going on in your business today. And so I have a guest today, Darren Crosby, who's a friend of mine who has been in the entrepreneurial space for over 20 years, really specializes in helping small businesses small businesses not have to necessarily personal guarantee their debt or how to build credit along with their EIN number. So I'm really excited to dive into this with you today because I know it's a topic that a lot of small businesses just aren't aware that there's this option out there to build credit. So thank you so much for being here, Darren. I really appreciate it.
No, thanks for having me. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, if you want to just give a little background on, how your entrepreneurial journey has been and where you are today.
Yeah, no, for sure. I realized at an early age that I wanted to be an entrepreneur and own my own business at some point, and got my professional journey started in the mortgage business. Worked for a large company here in Atlanta for about 7.5 years, and then left them. Took 5 people with me, started my own, grew it up to about 35 loan officers and 15, 20 operations/support staff. Um, just got burnt out on the mortgage business and, the risk versus reward. And along the way, I owned 3 Wingstop locations. And then in 2013, bought a golf cart company and paid 900,000, or it was doing about 900,000 in revenue when I bought it. Grew it up to when we closed out 2019. We were just shy of $2.5 million year in revenue. Loved the business, loved my clients, had a great business model. Unfortunately, my business model did not jive with COVID at all. I had the largest rental fleet of golf carts in Atlanta, and 90% of my revenue was to all the festivals and events around town.
Mm-hmm.
And so March 6th of 2020, right as we were getting ramped up for a busy spring season, within about 4 hours, I had every festival, event, and summer camp cancel on me. I had a 20,000 square foot warehouse space. Landlord wasn't willing to work with me. And so unfortunately, I had to bankrupt the company and had to file personal bankruptcy as well because I was personal guarantor on an owner held note, as well as a $250,000 line of credit that I used to buy the golf carts that I put into the rental fleet. So fast forward to today, about a year and a half ago, I stumbled across the notion that you can build business credit tied to the EIN, so you no longer have to personally guarantee anything and you separate your personal assets from the business. And obviously that resonated with me personally. And I just, and I could be biased, but I think every business owner needs to do that because you never
Yeah.
know when something's going to happen. And, so now I just try to bring all my history as a business owner to the table, home runs and strikeouts to help business owners make smart, strategic financial decisions surrounding their business. And ultimately, most importantly, help them stay in business.
Yeah.
So,
No, it's huge. And I think there's this big misconception that business owners have that they think as they're building business credit that it is tied to the business when really it's tied to their social security number.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
And
Did it
yeah,
have,
what have you seen in that? Because I mean, even when I remember first starting my business, they always want to know when you go down the bank, you open your, bank account, you get the business credit card, everything wants your personal social security number to be tied to it. So
yep.
what's the difference between thinking you have business credit and then actually understanding that it's not tied to your EIN?
So there's only about 5% of the financial institutions that intentionally report a positive payment history to the 3 business credit bureaus, Dun& Bradstreet, Equifax for Business, and Experian for Business.
Mhm.
Um, And the reason why is the financial institutions get charged every time they report. Now, if you miss a payment, they'll gladly report the negative. And, I talk to people all the time. They say, oh, well, I already have business credit. I've got a Chase Inc. for business or a Platinum Amex for business. And my typical response is, well, is your name on the card underneath the business name? And they go, yep. I'm like,
it's not a business.
Pull up your Experian report.
Yeah.
And sure enough, that Amex or that Chase is on there. And, earlier last year, I was having a conversation with a client. He's has a large commercial plumbing company in Boulder, Colorado. He and his dad run it, and they were interested in building up the business credit. And then they finally told me, "Nah, we don't see the value in this." I was like, "Why is that?" We already have business credit. And I'm like, Ryan, your Chase card is reporting on your personal, your Amex, the truck loans for your business, and your line of credit. I said, if something goes sideways with the business, they're coming after you personally. And you more than pierced the corporate veil. You made the corporate veil look like a slice of Swiss cheese. And then his response was, well, we're protected. We have an LLC.
Yeah. And you're like, you're not, though, not on this way.
Yeah. And they said, well, our accountant said we are. And I said, well, I've got two suggestions for you. One, get a new accountant. And two, get an attorney to properly set up your LLC.
Yeah.
So who knows if they did it? They didn't sign up with me, though.
They were willing to go take some chances and not do it just the right way. So when somebody initially sets up their business, or even if they've had it a long time, why is it that the banks and the lenders and all of these vendors push for this personal guarantee so much? And why do business owners, they just willfully sign away and no problem?
Yeah. No, because, banks by nature are conservative. They don't like a whole lot of risk. And if you've got a business and you start to go out of business or things start slowing down, there's nothing stopping you from depleting all the business accounts for your own personal savior. And, so they want to be able to come after you, especially if you're a high net worth individual with a lot of assets and equity in real estate and whatnot. And, so that's why they want that personal guarantee on there, because banks, when they're extending credit, they're extending it with the assumption that you might go out of business. So we got to protect ourselves.
Yeah. And that's always, you hear that a lot. And like I've had clients go get lines of credit and they have to, all personally, guarantee it. And yeah, it's to your point. The bank doesn't want to take risks. They want to know that they can get their money back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So what risks do you see that business owners unknowingly kind of take on when they blur the personal and business credit card? Because even coming from an accounting perspective, I'm always, you don't mix personal and business. But I have a lot of clients that will get a personal credit card and then use it for business because the points are better than the business points on a credit card.
Right. Yeah, it's walking a fine line when you start doing that, because it goes back to, piercing the corporate veil and opening yourself up for risk.
Yeah.
When a business owner gets started, the challenge they run into is, like, take me, for example. When I bought that golf cart company, it had been around for almost 8 years, had been profitable, had been successful. and I bought it. I was trying to get lines of credit and whatnot, and was getting turned down because I hadn't owned it for 2 years, even though I could show the historical financials.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was sitting there shucking and jiving with short-term loans with high interest rates and whatnot. And if I'd known you could build business credit, I could have started that day one.
Yeah.
And then 9 months later, because it takes about 9 months to go through the steps to where we're avoiding all those personal guarantees.
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting is 9 times out of 10, a business owner is able to get access to more capital when they're tying it to their EIN than they can go into Wells Fargo or Bank of America or whoever, because the amount of capital a business owner gets access to has nothing to do with revenue, nothing to do with tax returns, P&Ls, or balance sheets. It's a multiple of the monthly spend, and they ultimately get roughly 10x.
Yeah.
And like I've got a client, he's a high-end custom home builder in Boulder, Colorado. He doesn't touch a home for less than $3 million. And his average monthly spend is between $400,000 and $500,000. And he went through the process of building the credit.
Mm-hmm.
He now has access to a roughly $4.5 million line of credit. And he's using that to manage his cash flow, because he'll be building one of these big homes for a client.
Yeah.
Sends them a draw request for $700,000. They take their sweet time paying him. Well, he needs that money so he can keep the project going.
Yeah.
And then
float all your expenses along the way until it's 30 plus days before you're getting your money.
Right. And,
Yeah.
And then the client will come to him 2-3 weeks later. They're like, hey, Dave, the progress has slowed down. And he's like, I'd have to kind of politely say, well, Christy, you know that email I sent you 3 weeks ago?
Gonna need to pay.
You can give me that 700. And so how he's planning on using the line of credit is keeping the project going. He'll be able to build more homes faster, and just float the money until his client pays him. And in conjunction with that, he's had his business for 17 years. And he's like, look, business is great right now, but I've been at this long enough that it's not always up and to the right in the real estate world. And I have the best team I've ever had over the 17 years I've been in business. And so let's say next year, the real estate market takes a downturn. I'm going to float payroll on the line of credit because I don't want to let any of these people go, because the pendulum will swing back in my favor, and then I'm going to need people again.
Right.
And so, I think he's being extremely smart about his business and how he's planning on utilizing that credit.
Mm-hmm. Do you see, because you know how a lot of times when you have a personal credit card, you get a letter in the mail that, hey, we're going to increase your amount on your card. You went up from $50,000 to $75,000 because you've been paying your bill. I've seen some people, again, they're not clients of mine, it's just in passing of discussion. It would be business owners to say they've had the reverse. They get a letter from the credit card company and is like, well, your monthly maximum is now going down. And it's one of those where I'm curious, is that tied to them personally because they have some, not great credit score, or was it ever tied to the business?
Probably was not tied to the business. And when an instance like that arises, in all likelihood, what the bank is looking at is the business owner's overall credit utilization.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're able to see your credit report. They're able to see, okay, we're American Express. You've got a Chase card. You've got such and such fuel cards or whatever the case may be. And if you've got them all maxed out or close to maxed out, the bank is looking at that like, ooh,
Yeah, like this is scary now.
this is getting in
Hmm.
a risky spot. And so that's why they'll come in and say, hey, we're cutting you down from 50 to 25 or whatever the case may be.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a really interesting conversation I had the other day, and I was like, oh, you know what? This is perfect because I was going to be chatting with you, and I'm like, you know what? I know a guy that knows. So, yeah. See that? Can you walk us through, like, what are the foundational steps that a business needs to take before they can get the EIN-based credit? Like, what does that owner need to do?
So there's 7 steps along the way. The first step is just getting your house in order. And what I mean by that is you want to make sure the address that's registered with the Secretary of State matches the business address, because I was just as guilty of it when I owned businesses. We would move locations and I wouldn't update the address with the Secretary of State because I didn't see a need to.
Right.
And most of the times when I pull up the business credit reports, almost every single time, the address that's registered with the Secretary of State is not the current business address. You need to have a physical address that is not your house. They don't want to see a residence. Email, phone numbers, all that sort of stuff, website. And then one thing that I have no idea why this is a hot button with the business credit bureaus, they want your business phone number to be registered with 411.
Oh.
Nobody's used 411.
No. Didn't even know it was still around.
Right. I had a conversation a few months ago with this kid. He's 28 years old, has his own little junk removal business. And I mentioned that to him, and he just looked at me with a blank stare. And I said, let me guess. You've never heard of 411? He's like, no.
Like, no.
He'd never heard of it. But, so first you do that, kind of get everything in order.
Mm-hmm.
Then you go and register with each of the business bureaus. In most cases, pretty much everybody I talk to has a DUNS number, but they're usually not registered with Equifax for Business or Experian for Business. And then from there, you start applying for credit. And what we recommend is in the last few steps, get 3 to 4 trade lines. A trade line could be a working capital line of credit, a corporate credit card, a fuel card, an auto loan, whatever the case may be. Use it, pay it responsibly, and then it's just rinse, wash, and repeat. And with our platform where we help business owners build their business credit profile, we've got access to a database of the roughly 2,500 financial institutions that we know actually do report to the business bureaus. And so then from there, it's just rinse, wash, and repeat as you go from tier 1 to tier 2 to tier 3. And then when you're in tier 4, that's where you're completely avoiding all the personal guarantees. Mm-hmm. And how do you know you're in tier 4? When your score hits 80 or higher.
Okay.
On personal, credit scores go from 350 to 850, with 800 being just kind of a sign and drive. You want to go buy a new car, go to the dealership, you're driving off the lot in an hour.
Yeah, kind of the sky's the limit. You got all the keys to the kingdom.
Yeah. And with business credit, the scores go from 0 to 100, with 80 being that equivalent of an 800 credit score.
Okay.
So
is that kind of average then, or are there businesses that are closer to the 100 point?
If they keep sticking with it, I've seen businesses get up to 97, 98, 99.
Oh, wow.
And when I'm first engaging with the client and pull up their business credit report, the majority of the time, their score is somewhere between 25 and 35.
Mm-hmm.
And like take a custom home builder, been in business for 17 years. His score was a 27 when he started engaging with us. And guess how many trade lines had reported over the 17 years that he's had his company?
Oh, he probably had over a dozen, right?
Two.
Two.
And he's like, I've got 3 corporate credit cards. I've got 3 auto loans for trucks
Yeah, all
for
the
my
trucks they're
crew
using.
and everything, and none of them were reporting.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, okay. So those those are the full 7 steps. Everybody needs to go through those, and then they can start that process. But is there anything kind of along the way that they can sometimes get stuck at a certain step and it keeps them from, getting to where they need to go, or is it pretty seamless?
It's fairly seamless.
Okay.
I've seen some people do it in as little as 6 months, getting
Mm-hmm.
to a spot where there's no personal guarantees. But I would say on average it's about 9 months. And how long the time frame takes,
Yeah.
one depends on where their business credit score is when they get started. I've got a new client that just signed up a couple of weeks ago, and his business credit score is a 61. So
Mm-hmm.
he's not far.
No.
So where they currently stand as far as their score, and then just how much they're utilizing that credit and paying in a timely manner.
Okay. And when you look at things of what happens when the business starts to hit this downturn, sales are going down or the owner wants to sell the company, is there anything unique about how this EIN, like that whole credit protection and things like that kind of play?
Yeah, you know, if they start to experience a downturn, and they've got a working capital line of credit there, I tell folks, think of it as in case of emergency, break glass.
Yeah.
I've got one client that's going through the process, and his impetus for doing it is he has an SBA loan on the building that his business is located in. Well, the SBA sinks their teeth into everything, personal guarantees, lien on his house, everything. And he's like, it keeps me up at night
Oh, bad.
knowing that if things go south, I could lose my house. So he's going to refinance out into just a regular real estate term loan without any personal guarantees. And I told him, I said, Brian, while you're at it, you ought to get a working capital line of credit. He's like, well, I don't have any debt. And I said, I'm not telling you to take on debt. Think of it as in case of emergency, break glass.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you have a slowdown and you need money, you probably needed money 2 weeks ago.
And it's going to be harder to go apply for it as
Exactly.
well. Yeah.
Yeah. And you can't wait 3 to 4 months for a bank to extend credit. And if you're experiencing a downturn, they're probably going to be hesitant to.
Yeah.
And then in terms of a sale, where it can be hugely beneficial, is if they structure the sale as a stock purchase, that EIN transfers over to the new owner.
Mm-hmm.
And so that accomplishes 2 things. One, let's say you've got 2 commercial plumbing companies. One of them has business credit established, the other one doesn't. And the one that doesn't wants $5 million. The one that does have the business credit established wants $6 million. You can justify that additional $1 million because of the ability to transfer that EIN. And if you have a working capital line of credit and there's not a balance on it, the new owner can utilize that line of credit to help them purchase the business. And so it helps justify a higher sale price.
Yeah. And it saves a lot, because how many times it's not, and then they're having to go reapply, and they get all of these things, and it's time they may not even get what the previous owner had, because it's new. Kind of like
Yep.
what you said with when you had the golfing business. Hey, we show the company's made a profit, and the bank's like, well, that's fantastic. We don't want to give you anything.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting how it all kind of plays in. Another question for you: if somebody was listening today and they want to start kind of undoing all of this personal risk that they've had come into their business, what's the first thing they should start this quarter to start untangling all the personal interwebs in their business?
They just need to give me a call.
Okay. So just give me a call. I'll have you taken care of before the end of the quarter, probably the end of the month.
And one question I get is, what's the time commitment
Yeah.
for the business owner? Well, the first two steps, getting your house in order and registering with the business credit bureaus, that probably takes a total of about 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, when they're applying for the credit, maybe 45 minutes to an hour a month.
Okay. Yeah, that's nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you ever get clients or people ask you that they're afraid they waited too long, and it's like, can I even get this going, or is it kind of a lost cause?
It's funny you say that. The client that I told you had a 61.
Yeah.
He's had his business for, I believe, 23 years. He started to do this about 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of went off the radar. He started getting uber busy and whatnot. And he signed up with us here just in the last few weeks. And he's like, why didn't I stick with this 10 plus years ago? Maybe it was like, I could already have this monster credit limit, because the idea he has is he's down in Florida now. He wants to move up to Asheville, North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
And he wants to do either a tiny house or one of those storage container homes.
Yep.
And he said, would I be able to purchase the land and the house on my business credit? I said, yeah. And he said, well, would I be able to do that by July? I said, if you're diligent, possibly. And then that's when he said, so if I'd stuck with this 10 years ago, I would already have access to $250,000, $300,000 in credit, because that's about what he's thinking he's going to need between land acquisition and the structure itself. And I was like, yeah, you would.
Mm-hmm.
But you're not going to have access to $250,000 or $300,000 by July.
No.
You might by year's end. So, and he was like, I'm just a big idiot.
You're like, it's okay though. We'll get you going where you need to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say if there's one thing you could tell business owners that would be a mindset shift around, how all of this is seen and done. I think the hardest thing when you're an entrepreneur, just a first-time business owner, is you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
You only know what is out there, which is usually not always in your favor to help you be successful. It's like these, put it in your personal guarantee, and you just think that that's the way it is. So what is one thing you would tell business owners to kind of question or maybe shift their mindset to look at other options out there and it not be scary for them to do?
Yeah. I would say, think about where you want your business to go and where you envision it being 3, 4, 5 years down the road.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've never met a business owner that says, hey, I want to just drive this car right into the ditch. Everybody wants to grow. Well, there's plenty of times where you need capital to grow. Start building the business credit so that when you're ready to expand your fleet of trucks for your plumbing business, or you need to build up inventory of your product or whatnot, you already have everything in place and you're not scrambling around trying to get access to all that capital.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Like I've got one client. He's got a graphic design and swag promo business. He does about $1.5 million a year in revenue, and he's like, I'm kind of hit a glass ceiling, and where I can't break through the 1.5 million. It's not for a lack of interest in what we're doing. I just don't have enough staff and butts in seats to be able to handle it, all the business that's coming in.
yeah.
But my current financials don't support bringing on $250,000 a year in salaries. Well, he's getting a $400,000 line of credit, and his plan is to float payroll off of that, hire some people, float payroll off of that while they grow and scale. And as he told me, he said, I know within 4 to 5 months, our 12-month trajectory, we're going to be on the path to 2.5 million in revenue. And at 2.5 million, it more than justifies the additional $250,000 in salary.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so he's using it in a smart way as well, just to help rapidly grow and scale his business.
Yeah. And it's all about leveraging wisely too and strategically of how you're going to use it. Because I know some people, you know, they get these lines or whatever, and it goes towards something that isn't going to really benefit the company long term. It's kind of chasing the shiny objects. And then people like you just mentioned, they're like, oh, well, strategically we can do this, and this is how we're going to get over this hurdle that we've been stuck on for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was having a conversation with a lady last week about this topic, and, you know, and she agreed with me, and I told her, I said, there is such a thing as good debt.
Mm-hmm. There is.
Where you've got debt on your business, and in the example of the swag promo company, he's utilizing that the right way to grow and scale his business. If you're using that just to go buy another car for personal use, that's not a good use of debt.
Not at all. And sometimes they get caught up in those ways, and yeah, it's not the best at all.
Yeah.
No.
And then there's also another example of bad debt is there's factoring companies where they're looking at accounts receivable, and they'll advance you a percentage of your accounts receivable, but it's really high interest rates. And then another example of bad debt is the merchant cash advances.
Oh, I hate those. So many people take those because they get emails about them all the time. I'm like, run. They
get
trick
emails
you.
about it.
Yeah.
They get desperate because they had a slowdown. They're like, I have to have $40,000 right now. Well, and they'll go, oh, great. This company's giving me the 40 grand I need. I only have to pay them back $200 a day. I can swing that. Well, that's $4,000 a month.
Yeah. And then you look at the rates of what all it is too, and you think, oh, it's a 7% interest, but then you don't read the other calculations down below, and you're like, oh no, this is really over 15%.
No, some of the merchant cash advances can be 25, 30, 35%. And then they get caught in this vicious cycle of now they have to go take another MCA to wipe out the first MCA. Well, now the new MCA is $300 a day.
Yeah. And then they have days that, sales were slow this week and now it has to debit out of your bank account to hit that quota that it takes. Yeah, I get a lot of clients that have those. Shopify loves to send them out, Stripe, QuickBooks, and it's like guaranteed. Here you go. Just sign below. We'll give you the money. And I always tell everybody, I'm like, just run. Don't go that route because it doesn't help you in the long run. It really doesn't.
No. And I had a potential client over in Columbia, South Carolina. He and his wife have one of these like med spas,
Yeah.
and they just opened it up. They had an investor lined up that was going to help them with some capital. Well, that investor backed out. They've only had the business for 6 months, so they can't get a loan.
Mm-hmm.
They can't wait the 9 months to build up their business credit. And so he told me, he's like, hey, what about, I was reading about these MCAs. And I told him, I said, you could do that.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna help you with that, because I'll tell you what's gonna happen. You're gonna be out of business within 45 to 60 days.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, so I would proceed with an extraordinary amount of caution.
Yeah.
I don't know what he ended up doing. I hope he didn't take them.
Yeah, hopefully.
So, and that's one thing. I was having a conversation with a lady this morning, and as I told her, I said, I'm never going to put a business owner in a financing instrument that's going to put them in a bad spot.
Right.
The whole point of me helping them is to help prop their business up and make their business sustainable and successful, not to drive it into the ground.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not at all. One thing I like to do at the end of the podcast is just some rapid fire fun questions for people. Okay. So I got a couple of them for you. So first one is personal guarantee. Is it a necessary evil or an outdated default?
I would say necessary evil.
Yeah. What is one sign your business credit is actually just personal credit in disguise?
Like the example of the custom home builder.
Yeah.
Had his business for 17 years and had 2 trade lines reporting.
What is one mistake that initially sets founders back years?
I would say taking on that high interest debt.
Mm-hmm.
Because they've started the company. Banks don't want to lend them money until they've shown at least a 2-year track record of being successful. And so they're shucking and jiving with these shorter term loans that they think they're being smart because it's going to fuel growth, but it really just ends up stagnating them more than helping them.
And then my last question for you is, what is one question every owner should ask a lender, but they rarely do?
That's a good question. I would say just what are the overall terms?
Mm-hmm.
Because
and to explain it probably in a lot of detail.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I think all too often, especially when it's a newer business, they're just excited to get their hands on some money. And so they don't really pay attention to the terms.
Yeah. I think that's key right there. Because even with my own clients, that's a lot of the problems. They'll do the microloans and things like that. And then I get a note of, hey, well, we signed up for this. And I'm like, oh, well, did you read the terms? No, but we needed the money today.
Right.
Yep. And you're like, okay, surprise, this is what we're working with. You're like, got it.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, if people would like to have you help them, what is the best way to reach out and find you?
My website is Darren, DARREN Trytouring, TRYTURING.ai. And my email address is dcrosby@tjcorporatecredit.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And
Thanks
hopefully
for having
everybody
me.
that listened got some great snippets of information of how you can start building your own credit with your EIN and move away from all that personal guarantees. So thank you again, Darren.